You're not my real mom." The words sliced through the air like a knife through my heart, echoing off the walls of our kitchen in Portland, Oregon. My daughter Sarah stood there, 17 years of rage burning in her eyes that looked exactly like mine. The casserole dish I'd been holding slipped from my hands, shattering across the tile floor in an explosion of glass and marinara sauce, but I barely heard it. All I could hear was that sentence, repeating over and over in my mind like a cruel mantra. She'd found something. I could see it in the way she clutched that crumpled piece of paper in her fist, her knuckles white with tension. My sister Michelle stood behind her in the doorway, her face twisted into something that might have been sympathy, but looked more like satisfaction. This was the moment I'd feared for 17 years. The moment when everything I'd built, every sacrifice I'd made, every sleepless night and worried prayer would come crashing down around me. "Sarah, baby, let me explain," I started, my voice cracking. "Don't call me that," she screamed, her face flushed red. "You lied to me my entire life. My entire life. Who even are you?" The paper in her hand was a birth certificate, not hers, not the one I'd shown her before. This was different. This was the original, the one I'd hidden in a lockbox in my closet, the one I thought was safely tucked away with all my other secrets. But Michelle had keys to my house. Michelle had access to everything. And Michelle, I was realizing with a sickening clarity, had orchestrated this entire moment. "How could you?" Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper now, which was somehow worse than the screaming. Whispers meant she was already gone, already pulling away from me. "How could you keep this from me?" I reached out to her, my hands trembling, but she stepped back like I was poison. In that moment, watching my daughter, the girl I'd raised, the baby I'd held through colic and nightmares, the toddler whose first word was mama, the child I'd homeschooled through 5th grade when bullies made her life hell, look at me like I was a stranger. I felt my world splinter into 1,000 irreparable pieces. "Let me tell you the truth," I whispered. "Let me tell you everything." But she was already walking away, following Michelle out the door, leaving me standing alone in a kitchen full of broken glass and broken dreams, with 17 years of love scattered at my feet, like the shattered remains of dinner. The front door slammed. The silence that followed was deafening. I sank to my knees, not caring about the glass, not caring about anything except the fact that I'd just lost my daughter. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Michelle. "She deserves to know the truth. You should have told her years ago." My hands shook as I pulled out the one thing I'd kept with me every single day for 17 years. A small plastic hospital bracelet, yellowed with age, with a name printed on it that would change everything. Baby girl Thompson. Mother, Rebecca Ann Thompson. Born, March 15, 2008. Portland General Hospital. My name, my daughter, my truth. And I was going to prove it, even if it destroyed us both in the process. My name is Rebecca Thompson, and I'm 42 years old. I work as a hospice nurse in Portland, Oregon, taking care of people in their final days, a job that taught me about the fragility of life and the importance of truth. But apparently, I haven't been very good at practicing what I've learned. I live in a modest 2-bedroom house in the Selwood neighborhood, the kind of place with a front porch that desperately needs repainting and a garden full of roses I planted when Sarah was 5. She helped me that day, her small hands covered in dirt, laughing as we buried the roots deep. "They'll grow forever, Mommy," she'd said. And they did. Those roses bloomed every spring, thick and red and beautiful, just like the love I thought we'd built together. My days usually start at 5:30 a.m. I make coffee in the same chipped mug Sarah painted for me in 3rd grade. "World's Best Mom" in wobbly blue letters. I'd pack her lunch, even now that she's 17 and claims she's too old for mom-made sandwiches. I'd leave little notes in her bag. "You're amazing. I'm proud of you. Love you to the moon and back." Small things. Stupid things, maybe. But they mattered to me. Sarah was my miracle. I was 25 when I had her, young and terrified and alone. Her father, David, had left when I was 3 months pregnant, choosing his freedom over fatherhood. I never heard from him again. It was just us against the world. Mother and daughter, best friends. Or so I thought. I worked 2 jobs back then, nursing during the day and waitressing at night, sleeping maybe 4 hours if I was lucky. I missed her first steps because I was at work. I missed her kindergarten play because I had a double shift. But I was there for everything else. Every scraped knee, every bad dream, every heartbreak. I gave her everything I had. everything I was. My sister Michelle moved to Portland 3 years ago after her divorce. I thought it would be good to have family close by, someone Sarah could bond with, an aunt who could be another positive influence in her life. I let Michelle stay with us for 6 months until she got on her feet. I lent her money I didn't have, when her car broke down. I covered her rent twice. I introduced her to my friends, included her in our holidays, made her feel like part of our little family. But Michelle always had this edge to her, this bitterness that I tried to ignore. She'd make comments about how Sarah had it so easy, how I spoiled her, how I was too soft as a mother. I brushed it off. Sisters are complicated, I told myself. She was jealous, maybe, or just going through something difficult. I never imagined she'd do this. Never imagined she'd betray me so completely. The house feels empty now without Sarah. I can hear the clock ticking in the living room, the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of floorboards as I pace back and forth, trying to figure out how to fix this. Her bedroom door is closed, but I know she's not behind it. She's at Michelle's apartment across town, probably crying, probably hating me, probably believing whatever poison Michelle has been dripping into her ears. My phone sits on the counter, silent. No calls, no texts, just that one message from Michelle, mocking me, blaming me, twisting the knife. I pick up the hospital bracelet again, running my thumb over the faded letters. This is my proof. This is my truth. But will it be enough? Will Sarah even listen? Or have I already lost her forever? The roses outside need watering. I can see them through the kitchen window, wilting slightly in the afternoon sun. I should go outside and take care of them. I should clean up the broken casserole dish. I should do something, anything, to feel like I have control over my life. But instead, I sit down at the kitchen table and let myself cry for the first time since Sarah walked out. Deep, ugly sobs that shake my entire body, because I'm terrified that telling the truth will hurt her even more, terrified that the secrets I've kept, secrets I thought were protecting her, will destroy the only thing that ever mattered to me, my daughter, my Sarah, my entire world. The next morning, I called in sick to work, something I never do. I couldn't focus on dying patients when my own life was falling apart. I needed to see Sarah, to talk to her, to explain. But when I drove to Michelle's apartment, my sister met me at the door with a cold smile that made my blood run cold. "She doesn't want to see you," Michelle said, blocking the doorway. "She's my daughter. I have a right..." "Do you?" Michelle interrupted, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Because according to this birth certificate, there's some question about that, isn't there?" I stared at her, trying to understand what was happening. This was my sister. We'd grown up together in Salem, Oregon, sharing a bedroom, sharing secrets, sharing everything. We'd fought, sure, what sisters don't? But I'd never seen this look in her eyes before, this malice. "What are you doing, Michelle?" "I'm helping Sarah see the truth, something you should have done a long time ago." She started to close the door, but I put my foot in the way. "Let me talk to her, please. She's asleep. She cried all night, Rebecca. All night. Because of you. Because of your lies." The words hit me like a physical blow, but there was something else in Michelle's voice, something that didn't quite ring true. She was enjoying this. She was actually enjoying my pain. "You went through my things," I said slowly, understanding dawning. "You went through my lockbox. I was looking for tax documents you said you'd lend me. I found something much more interesting." She held up a folder, my folder, the one I'd kept hidden for 17 years. "Did you know there's a whole investigation report in here? From the hospital? About missing babies? About switched bracelets?" My heart stopped. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly. You stole someone else's baby." "That's not what happened." "Then, what did happen, Rebecca? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you took a baby that wasn't yours and ran. And now Sarah deserves to know who her real mother is." I felt dizzy. The world was spinning. This couldn't be happening. "You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know anything about..." "I know enough. I know that you've been lying for 17 years. I know that somewhere out there's a woman who lost her baby and has been looking for her ever since. And I know that Sarah has a right to the truth." Behind Michelle, I could see movement. Sarah, standing in the hallway, watching us. Her face was pale, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She looked so young, so vulnerable, so completely shattered. "Is it true?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Did you steal me?" "No, baby, no. Don't lie to me anymore." She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "Just tell me the truth. For once in your life, just tell me the truth." Michelle stepped aside, letting Sarah come to the door. My daughter stood there looking at me like I was a monster, and I felt something inside me break completely. "I am your mother," I said, my voice shaking. "I gave birth to you. I have proof." "Then why does this birth certificate have a different baby's footprints?" Michelle held up another paper, one I'd never seen before. "Why does the hospital report say there was a mix-up in the nursery? Why does it say 2 babies were accidentally switched and they never figured out which was which?" I couldn't breathe. Where had she gotten that? How had she— "The hospital sealed those records," I whispered. "I have a friend who works in medical records. It wasn't that hard to get." Michelle's smile was vicious. "So, let me ask you again, Rebecca. How do you know Sarah is really yours?" Sarah's face crumpled. She turned and ran back into the apartment, slamming a door behind her. Michelle looked at me with something like triumph in her eyes. "You have 48 hours to tell her the whole truth," she said quietly. "Or I will. And trust me, my version won't be as pretty as yours." She closed the door in my face. I stood there in the hallway, shaking, feeling like the ground had opened up beneath me. This was worse than I'd imagined. So much worse. Because Michelle wasn't just trying to hurt me. She was trying to take Sarah away from me completely. And the worst part? I wasn't sure I could stop her. I drove home in a daze, my mind spiraling back through 17 years of memories, trying to understand how we'd gotten here. The drive felt endless. Every stoplight a torture. Every mile another reminder of how far Sarah had pulled away from me. When I got home, I went straight to my bedroom and pulled out the boxes I'd kept in the back of my closet. Boxes full of Sarah's baby things, photo albums, hospital records, everything I'd saved from those early days. I needed to remember. I needed to ground myself in the truth before Michelle's lies consumed everything. The first photo I found was from the hospital, taken hours after Sarah was born. I was exhausted, my hair matted with sweat, my face pale and drawn, but I was smiling wider than I'd ever smiled in my life. Sarah was wrapped in a pink blanket, so tiny and perfect, her eyes barely open, her little fist curled against her cheek. My miracle baby. The pregnancy had been difficult. I'd had preeclampsia in my 3rd trimester, and the doctors were worried about both of us. David had already left by then, his parting words echoing in my ears. "I'm not ready to be a father. This was your choice, not mine. My choice." As if love was ever a choice. As if you could choose not to love the life growing inside you. I was alone when my water broke, 3 weeks early, at 2 a.m. I drove myself to Portland General Hospital, terrified and in pain, calling my mother from the car. But she was in Sacramento taking care of my grandmother and couldn't make it in time. Michelle was only 22 then, still in college in Seattle, and she didn't answer her phone. So I labored alone. 12 hours of agony, nurses coming and going, but no familiar faces, no one to hold my hand. I remember begging God to keep my baby safe, promising I'd be the best mother in the world if he'd just let her be healthy. And then she was born. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, perfect, beautiful, mine. They put her on my chest immediately. Skin to skin, they called it. I felt her tiny heart beating against mine. And I knew in that moment that nothing else in the world would ever matter as much as this child. Nothing. But then something happened. Something I've never fully understood. The nurses took her to the nursery to do the standard tests. Hearing, reflexes, all the routine procedures. I was exhausted, barely conscious, drifting in and out of sleep. When they brought her back 2 hours later, something felt different. I couldn't explain it then, and I still can't explain it now. Mother's intuition, maybe. Or paranoia, or exhaustion playing tricks on my mind. But I looked at her, and for just a split second I thought, is this my baby? It was a horrible thought, a thought that made me feel like a monster. What kind of mother looks at her own child and feels doubt? I pushed it away immediately, held her close, nursed her, loved her, and the feeling faded. Within hours, it was gone completely, replaced by an overwhelming certainty that this was my daughter, my Sarah, my everything. I never told anyone about that moment of doubt. Not the doctors, not my mother, not even David when he called weeks later, drunk and crying, saying he'd made a mistake leaving us. I hung up on him. We didn't need him. We had each other. The first year was brutal. I was working 50-hour weeks, pumping breast milk in hospital bathrooms, eating ramen noodles for dinner so I could afford diapers. My mother helped when she could, but she had her own health problems by then, the beginning of the Alzheimer's that would eventually take her from us. Michelle visited once, stayed for a weekend, complained about the crying, and didn't come back for 2 years. But Sarah and I, we thrived. She was a happy baby, always smiling, always laughing. Her first word was mama. Her first steps were into my arms. When she was 2, she'd pat my face and say, "I love you, Mommy," completely unprompted, and my heart would swell so large I thought it might burst. I taught her to read when she was 4. We'd curl up together on the couch every night, going through picture books, her small finger pointing at the words. The Very Hungry Caterpillar was her favorite. We must have read it 1,000 times. She had it memorized by the end. When she started kindergarten, I cried harder than she did. My baby was growing up, but I was there for every school event, every parent-teacher conference, every moment I could possibly manage. Other mothers had 2-parent households and disposable income and the luxury of relaxation. I had determination, I had love, and I had Sarah. The years blurred together in a kaleidoscope of moments. Sarah dressed as a princess for Halloween, losing her first tooth and putting it under her pillow for the tooth fairy. I almost forgot to put the dollar there, but I set an alarm. Learning to ride a bike in our driveway with me running beside her, screaming, "You got it, baby, you got it." 5th grade was hard. She got bullied by a group of girls who decided she wasn't cool enough, wasn't pretty enough, wasn't enough. I watched my confident, happy child become withdrawn and sad, so I pulled her out and homeschooled her for a year. I had no idea what I was doing. I wasn't a teacher, but I figured it out. We'd do math at the kitchen table, science experiments in the backyard, reading together every afternoon. That was the year we became not just mother and daughter, but best friends. She went back to school in 6th grade, stronger and more resilient. The bullies had moved on. She made new friends. She joined the track team and discovered she was fast, really fast. I went to every single meet, cheering louder than any other parent, embarrassing her sometimes but not caring because I was so damn proud. When she was 13, she asked me about her father. It was the first time she'd really pressed the issue. I told her the truth. He'd left. He'd chosen not to be part of our lives, and that was his loss, not ours. She cried. I held her, and then she said, "I don't need him anyway. I have you." Those words sustained me through everything, through the endless shifts at work, through the financial stress, through the lonely nights when I wondered if I'd ever have someone to share my life with, or if I was destined to be alone forever. I had Sarah. That was enough. Last year, for her 16th birthday, I saved for 6 months to take her to Disneyland. Just the 2 of us. We rode every ride, ate too much cotton candy, watched the fireworks with our arms around each other. She turned to me as the sky exploded in color and said, "Best birthday ever, Mom. Thank you for everything." I thought we were unbreakable. I thought our bond was too strong for anything to shatter it. I was wrong. 3 days passed. 3 days of silence. I texted Sarah every hour. "Please talk to me. I love you. Let me explain." Nothing. Michelle blocked my number, blocked me on social media, refused to answer her door when I went back to the apartment. I felt like I was losing my mind. On the 4th day, I got a call from Sarah's school. She hadn't been attending classes. The counselor wanted to know if everything was all right at home. I lied and said she was sick, buying time, praying I could fix this before it spiraled further out of control. That night, I got a text from an unknown number, Riverside Park, 7 p.m. Come alone. It was Sarah. It had to be. My hands shook as I typed back, "I'll be there." I arrived early, pacing near the playground where I used to bring her as a toddler. The swings were empty, moving slightly in the evening breeze. I remembered pushing her for hours, her squeals of, "Higher, Mommy, higher," echoing through the air. Simpler times. Innocent times. When Sarah arrived, she wasn't alone. Michelle was with her, along with two people I didn't recognize, a middle-aged woman with Sarah's exact nose and a man who looked vaguely familiar. My stomach dropped. "Who are they?" I asked, though part of me already knew. "Meet Janet and Robert Morgan," Michelle said, her voice filled with barely contained glee. "The couple whose baby was switched with Sarah in the hospital 17 years ago. The couple who've been looking for their daughter ever since." The world tilted. I grabbed the back of a bench to steady myself. "What?" Janet Morgan stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "We've been searching for so long," she whispered. "When Michelle contacted us through the hospital's old case files, we thought we'd never get this chance. You can't just..." I started, but Michelle cut me off. "They have a DNA test ready. All Sarah needs to do is agree to it. Then we'll know the truth." Sarah stood between them, looking lost and small and terrified. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Sarah, baby, listen to me." I reached for her, but she jerked away. "Don't," her voice cracked. "I don't know who you are anymore. I don't know who I am." Janet and Robert, they showed me pictures of their daughter, the one they took home from the hospital. She doesn't look anything like me. She has blonde hair and blue eyes. I look like... She gestured at Janet. "I look like her." And she did. God help me, she really did. The same dark hair, the same nose, the same shape of her face. How had I never noticed? Or had I noticed and refused to acknowledge it, because the truth was too terrifying? "The hospital made a mistake," I said, my voice breaking. "But that doesn't change the fact that I raised you, that I love you, that I'm your mother in every way that matters." "Except biologically," Michelle interjected. "Except in the most fundamental way possible. You took someone else's child, and you've been living a lie for 17 years. "That's not fair," I was yelling now, not caring who heard. "I didn't know. Didn't you?" Michelle pulled out that hospital bracelet I'd kept. My hospital bracelet. But now I could see what I'd refused to see before. The ink was smudged. The dates didn't quite match. And there, at the very bottom in tiny letters, was a notation I'd ignored for 17 years. "Correction. C-chart." "There was an investigation," Janet Morgan said softly. "When we got home with our daughter, with Melissa, we noticed immediately that something was wrong. She didn't look like us. She didn't have any of our genetic markers. We went back to the hospital, demanded answers. They told us there had been a mix-up in the nursery. 2 babies born at the same time, both to single mothers, both about the same weight. The bracelets got switched somehow, but they couldn't figure out which was which," Robert added. "Both mothers had already bonded with their babies. Both claimed their child was theirs. The hospital offered DNA testing, but you refused." I didn't refuse," I stammered. "I was never asked." "You were asked," Michelle said coldly. "I found the letter in your lockbox. The hospital sent you a certified letter offering free DNA testing to resolve the matter. You never responded." Sarah made a small, broken sound. "You knew? You knew this whole time and you never told me?" "No. I mean, yes, there was a letter, but I was sure. I couldn't get the words out. I couldn't explain the terror I'd felt when that letter arrived, the way I'd looked at baby Sarah and thought, what if they take her away? What if I lose her? What if that moment of doubt in the hospital was real? So I'd done nothing. I'd thrown the letter away and told myself everything was fine. Told myself I was protecting my daughter. But really, I'd been protecting myself, protecting the life I'd built, the identity I'd created as Sarah's mother. I was 25 years old and terrified, I whispered. I'd just had a baby. I was alone. And when I looked at you, Sarah, when I held you, I knew you were mine. I knew it in my soul. But you didn't know it in your blood," Janet Morgan said quietly. She wasn't angry, which somehow made it worse. She just looked sad, endlessly, heartbreakingly sad. "We've missed 17 years with our daughter, 17 birthdays, 17 Christmases, 17 years of watching her grow up. You stole that from us." I didn't steal anything, but even as I said it, I knew it wasn't entirely true. Maybe I hadn't stolen Sarah intentionally, but I'd kept her. Even when I had the chance to know for sure, I'd kept her. Out of love, yes, but also out of fear and selfishness. Sarah was crying now, great heaving sobs that shook her whole body. I don't know what to do. I don't know who I am. Am I Sarah Thompson, or am I their daughter? "You're whoever you want to be," Michelle said softly, putting an arm around her. But don't you deserve to know the truth? Don't you deserve to know your real family? I am her real family, I screamed. I raised her. I loved her. I was there for every moment of her life. Except you weren't her mother, Michelle said. Not really. And now she gets to decide if she wants to be part of the family that shares her blood, or if she wants to keep living this lie with you. The words hung in the air like poison. Sarah looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the moment she made her decision. I saw the moment I lost her. I want to take the test, she said quietly. I need to know. And just like that, my world ended. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah's face. The betrayal, the confusion, the pain. I'd done that to her. Me, the person who was supposed to protect her from pain. But as the hours dragged on and the shock began to fade, something else emerged. Clarity. Cold, hard clarity that cut through the emotion like a knife. I sat at my kitchen table with every document I'd ever saved from the hospital, spread out in front of me. The birth certificate, the hospital bracelet, the medical records, and that letter, the one I'd thrown away but apparently Michelle had recovered from somewhere, or maybe fabricated entirely. I studied every word, every date, every detail, and I started to see things I'd missed before. Inconsistencies, impossibilities, lies. The letter Michelle claimed was from the hospital. It had no official letterhead, no signature from any actual doctor or administrator. Just a typed note on plain white paper allegedly sent via certified mail, but there was no tracking number, no official seal, nothing that would prove it was real. I pulled up the hospital's records on my laptop, the ones I'd been able to access through my nursing credentials. I searched for any notation about switched babies in March 2008. There were records of Sarah's birth. Yes, records of the standard newborn procedures, but nothing about an investigation, nothing about switched bracelets. Nothing about any mix-up at all. Then I looked at the photo Michelle had shown me, the one of Janet and Robert Morgan with their supposed daughter, Melissa. I reverse searched it on Google. It took 20 minutes, but I found it. A stock photo from a parenting website, used in an article about adoption. The Morgans were fake. Or if they were real, they weren't who Michelle claimed they were. My sister had orchestrated this entire thing. But why? I made a list, writing furiously. Michelle needed money after her divorce. I told her no when she asked to borrow $10,000 last month. She's been jealous of Sarah since she was born. I remember the comments, the little digs. She tried to date my ex-boyfriend from high school when she visited 2 years ago. She's never been able to keep a relationship, maintain a job, build a stable life, and she's always blamed me for her problems, saying I got all the attention from our parents because I had a baby. It clicked into place like pieces of a puzzle I hadn't known I was solving. Michelle didn't care about truth or justice or Sarah's well-being. She wanted to hurt me. She wanted to take the one thing that mattered most to me, either out of jealousy or spite, or some twisted combination of both. And she'd been willing to traumatize my daughter, her own niece, to do it. Rage flooded through me, hot and sharp. But beneath it was something cooler, something calculating. For 17 years, I'd been a mother first and everything else second. I'd been gentle, accommodating, understanding. I'd let Michelle take advantage of me because family was family, because blood mattered, because I wanted Sarah to have an aunt in her life. But that was over now. My daughter was hurting, and it was because of Michelle's lies, and I was going to prove it. I called my friend Lisa, who worked in hospital administration. She owed me. I'd covered her shifts when her mother was dying last year. I need you to pull some records for me, I said when she answered, her voice groggy with sleep. Official records from March 2008. I need to know if there was ever any investigation about switched babies at Portland General. Rebecca, it's 3 a.m. Please, Lisa, I'm begging you. My daughter's life depends on it. She heard the desperation in my voice. Okay, give me an hour. While I waited, I did something I should have done years ago. I searched for David, Sarah's father. It took some digging, but I found him on Facebook, living in Denver with a new wife and 2 young kids. He looked happy, content, like he'd never left a pregnant girlfriend in Portland to fend for herself. I sent him a message. This is Rebecca Thompson. We need to talk about Sarah. It's urgent. Then I called my mother's lawyer, the one who'd helped settle her estate when she died 5 years ago. I left a voicemail explaining that I needed help with a potential defamation case and possible fraud charges. By 4:30 a.m., Lisa called back. "There's no record of any investigation," she said. "I pulled everything from March 2008. There were 2 single mothers who gave birth that day, you and a woman named Patricia Gonzalez. But Patricia's baby was a boy, not a girl. There's no record of any Janet or Robert Morgan having a baby at Portland General in March 2008 or any time that year. Rebecca, whatever someone has told you, it's not in the official records." I closed my eyes, feeling vindication and rage in equal measure. "Can you print all of that for me? Official documents with the hospital seal? I can have them ready by noon. Thank you." My voice cracked. "Thank you so much." When the sun rose, I was still sitting at that kitchen table, but I was no longer the broken woman who'd sat there 4 days ago. I was still Sarah's mother. I'd always been Sarah's mother, and I was going to prove it to her, to Michelle, to anyone who dared question the bond we shared. But first, I needed to understand why Michelle had done this. I needed to know what she hoped to gain, because people don't construct elaborate lies for no reason. There's always an endgame. I thought about the lockbox she'd gone through, the documents she'd found. What else had been in there? My passport, Sarah's social security card, the deed to my house, bank statements showing the $50,000 I'd inherited from my mother, money I'd been saving for Sarah's college fund. The money. Of course it was about the money. It was always about money with Michelle. I checked my bank account online, my heart pounding. The savings account was untouched. I'd need to be present to withdraw that much. But my checking account was $3,000 lighter than it should have been. Recent charges to stores I'd never visited. ATM withdrawals I'd never made. Michelle had my debit card information. She'd probably copied it months ago when I let her borrow my card to buy groceries. I had everything I needed now. Proof that Michelle was lying. Proof that she was stealing from me. And proof that there had never been any switched babies. But I had something else too. I had my own DNA. And I had Sarah's baby blanket from the hospital. The one with her blood on it from the heel stick test they do on all newborns. I could prove Sarah was mine. I could prove it scientifically, legally, absolutely. But would she believe me? Or had Michelle poisoned her against me so completely that no amount of evidence would matter? There was only one way to find out. I picked up my phone and texted Sarah from a different number, my work phone, one Michelle didn't know about. "This is your mom. I have proof that Michelle has been lying to you about everything. If you want to see it, meet me at the house tomorrow at noon. Come alone, please. I love you." Then I waited. Sarah didn't respond to my text. Not that night. Not the next morning. By 11:30 a.m., I'd convinced myself she wouldn't come, that I'd lost her forever to Michelle's lies and manipulation. I paced the living room, the manila folder full of evidence clutched in my hands, rehearsing what I'd say if, when, she walked through that door. At 12:15, I heard a key in the lock. My heart leaped. She'd kept her key. That had to mean something, right? Sarah stepped inside, looking exhausted. Her hair was unwashed, pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore the same clothes I'd seen her in at the park. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. She looked like she hadn't slept either. "You came," I whispered. "Michelle doesn't know I'm here." She closed the door behind her but didn't move any further into the house. She went to work. I needed to hear your side, before I decide about the DNA test. There is no DNA test. There are no Morgans. There was never any switched baby. I held out the folder. Michelle made it all up. Sarah's eyes flickered with something. Hope? Doubt? But she stayed where she was. Prove it. So I did. I spread everything out on the coffee table. The official hospital records Lisa had printed, showing there were no other baby girls born that day. The reverse image search of the Morgan family photo, revealing it was stock photography. Bank statements showing Michelle's theft. The fake letter with no official markings. Sarah sank onto the couch as she read through it all, her hands shaking. I don't understand. Why would she do this? Because she's jealous. Because she wanted money. Because she's always resented the relationship we have. I sat down beside her, not too close, giving her space. And because I said no when she asked to borrow $10,000 last month. $10,000? Sarah looked up sharply. For what? She said she had a business opportunity. Some online thing that sounded like a pyramid scheme. I told her it wasn't legitimate, and I wouldn't enable her. I pulled out my phone, showing her the text exchange from 6 weeks ago, Michelle's increasing anger when I refused. Her final message, "You'll regret this. You think you're so much better than me, but you're not. I'll show you." I'd thought it was just her usual drama. I'd never imagined she'd go this far. Sarah was crying now, quietly, tears streaming down her face. She showed me pictures of that woman, Janet, holding a baby. She told me that baby was me. She said you'd stolen me and you'd been lying my whole life. I thought, God, I thought I didn't know who I was anymore. You know exactly who you are. You're Sarah Rebecca Thompson. You're my daughter. You've always been my daughter. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the hospital bracelet. The real one. The one I'd kept with me every day since her birth. Look at this. Really look at it. She took it with trembling fingers, studying the faded plastic. Baby girl Thompson. Mother, Rebecca Ann Thompson. Born, March 15, 2008, 6:47 a.m., Portland General Hospital. The ink wasn't smudged. The date was clear. And there, at the bottom, was my signature, shaky but legible, confirming I'd received my baby from the nursery at 9:15 a.m. that same morning. Michelle tried to make you think this was fake, I said softly. She showed you that altered version, the one with the smudged writing. But this is the original, and I have something else. I pulled out an envelope I'd been carrying since 4 a.m. that morning. Inside was a letter from Dr. Patricia Chen, the obstetrician who'd delivered Sarah. I'd tracked her down. She was retired now, living in Seattle, and driven there at dawn to ask her to write a statement. Sarah unfolded the letter and read aloud. I, Dr. Patricia Chen, delivered Rebecca Thompson's daughter on March 15, 2008 at Portland General Hospital. There were no complications with the birth, and the baby was placed directly with Ms. Thompson immediately following delivery. I was present when the hospital bracelet was attached to both mother and baby. There was never any investigation or question about the baby's identity. The child Ms. Thompson took home was undoubtedly the child she gave birth to. Signed, Dr. Patricia Chen, MD. There's more, I said, pulling out another document. This is a DNA profile from a lab. I had them test blood samples from your newborn screening. The hospital keeps those for 18 years, against my DNA. I had it expedited, cost me $1,200 I don't have, but I had to know for certain. Had to prove it once and for all. Sarah's hands shook as she looked at the results. Probability of maternity, 99.999%. I am her mother. Biologically, legally, absolutely. She made a sound, something between a laugh and a sob. You really are my mom. I've always been your mom, baby. Always. I risked putting my arm around her, and this time, she didn't pull away. She collapsed against me, sobbing, and I held her like I'd held her 1,000 times before, when she was scared, when she was hurt, when the world was too much. I'm so sorry, she choked out. I'm so sorry I believed her. I should have known. I should have trusted you. No, honey, no. Michelle is very good at lying. She's been doing it our whole lives, and she knew exactly which buttons to push to make you doubt everything. I stroked her hair, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo. This is not your fault. None of this is your fault. I said such terrible things to you. I called you a liar. I said you weren't my real mom. You were scared and confused. Anyone would have reacted the same way, but I should have listened. I should have let you explain. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. What do we do now? About Michelle? That was the question I'd been dreading, because what I wanted to do and what was right weren't necessarily the same thing. What I wanted was to call the police, press charges for fraud and theft, make Michelle pay for what she'd done. But Michelle was still my sister, and exposing her crimes would mean exposing Sarah to even more drama and pain. That's up to you, I said carefully. We can go to the police with all of this. We can press charges, or we can cut her out of our lives completely and move on. I want her to admit what she did. Sarah's voice was hard now, a tone I'd never heard from her before. I want her to look me in the eye and tell me why she tried to destroy our family. Okay. I stood up, making a decision. Then let's go talk to her. Together. Right now. Sarah stood too, squaring her shoulders. For a moment, she looked so much older than 17. Stronger, fiercer, unbreakable. Together, she echoed. We drove to Michelle's apartment in silence, but it was a different kind of silence than before. This was the silence of two people preparing for battle, united in purpose. When we knocked on her door, Michelle answered with a smile that died when she saw us standing there side by side. "Sarah, honey, what are you doing with... Don't call me honey. Don't call me anything." Sarah pushed past her into the apartment. I followed, closing the door behind us. "We know everything. We know you lied about the Morgans. We know you faked that letter. We know you stole from Mom's bank account." Michelle's face went pale, then red. "I don't know what she's been telling you, but she didn't tell me anything. I saw the proof. Real proof, not the garbage you fabricated." Sarah threw the folder on Michelle's coffee table. "It's all there. Hospital records, DNA tests, everything." Michelle looked at the papers, then at me. For just a second, I saw something like fear in her eyes. But then her expression hardened. "So what? You going to call the cops on me? Your own sister?" "I should," I said quietly. "You committed fraud. You stole money. You tried to destroy my relationship with my daughter. Any one of those things could get you arrested. But you won't, because you're too soft. You've always been too soft." "You're right. I have been. I let you take advantage of me for years because I felt sorry for you, because I thought family meant something." I stepped closer. "But that's over now. You hurt my child, and there's nothing I wouldn't do to protect her. So what? You're going to cut me off? Fine. I don't need you anyway. I never needed you. Actually, you've always needed me. That's the whole problem. You can't stand that I built a life without you, that I have something you want and can't have, so you tried to take it from me." I pulled out my phone. "I'm giving you two choices. 1, you pack your things and leave Portland. Today, you disappear from our lives completely, and I won't press charges. 2, I call the police right now and let them sort out the fraud, identity theft, and emotional abuse of a minor." Michelle laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "You're bluffing. Try me." We stared at each other, and I saw the moment she realized I meant it. Saw the moment she understood that she'd pushed too far, that the soft, accommodating sister she'd manipulated for decades was gone. "Fine," she spat. "I'll leave. But don't come crying to me when you need help. Don't call me when your precious daughter turns 18 and realizes what a controlling, overbearing mother you are. Don't..." "Goodbye, Michelle." We walked out, leaving her standing in her apartment, still ranting. Sarah grabbed my hand as we got to the car. "Is she really going to leave?" "I'll make sure of it. I have friends on the police force. I'll ask them to do a welfare check tomorrow, make sure she's gone." I squeezed her hand. "And if she's not, then we'll file charges. But I think she knows I'm serious this time." "Good." Sarah was quiet for a moment then. "Thank you for fighting for me. For us. Always, baby. Always." The next 3 weeks were a process of rebuilding. Small steps. Tiny victories. Slowly piecing our lives back together like a shattered vase being glued with painstaking care. Michelle left Portland within 48 hours, just as I'd demanded. She sent one final text to Sarah. "Your mom is a control freak and you'll figure that out eventually." And then nothing. I changed the locks on our house, closed the bank account she'd had access to, and filed a police report about the theft just to have it on record, even though I didn't pursue charges. Sarah moved back home, though the first few days were awkward. We circled each other carefully, both of us wounded, both of us trying to find our way back to the easy closeness we'd once shared. She apologized repeatedly, too much, until I finally had to tell her to stop, that we were moving forward, not dwelling on the past. But I could see the damage Michelle had done. Sarah looked at me differently now, with a wariness that broke my heart. She questioned things she never would have questioned before. When I said I'd be working late, she asked for details. When I said I was going to the store, she wanted to know which one. Not because she didn't trust me exactly, but because Michelle had planted seeds of doubt that were hard to uproot. I didn't blame her. I just worked to prove, day by day, that I was exactly who I'd always been. Her mother, her protector, her biggest supporter. We went to therapy together, both individually and as a family unit. Dr. Martinez, a kind woman in her 50s who specialized in family trauma, helped us talk through everything. The lies, the fear, the anger, the hurt. Sarah admitted that part of her had wanted the Morgans to be real, because then she'd have a second family, more people to love her. That confession hurt, but I understood it. Every kid wants to feel wanted. to feel like they belong to something bigger than themselves. But you do belong to something, I told her during one session. You belong to me, and I belong to you. That's a family. That's always been a family. Dr. Martinez also helped me confront my own guilt. The guilt about that letter I'd thrown away years ago. The guilt about the moment of doubt in the hospital. The guilt about not being perfect. No mother is perfect, she said gently, but a good mother loves fiercely and protects completely. That's what you've done. I also started rebuilding the parts of my life I'd neglected. I'd been so focused on being Sarah's mother that I'd forgotten to be Rebecca, a whole person with interests and dreams beyond parenting. I joined a book club with some nurses from work. I started running in the mornings, something I'd loved in college but had given up when Sarah was born. I even went on a coffee date with a man named Tom, who worked in hospital IT. Nothing serious, just conversation and laughter, and the reminder that I could be someone other than Sarah's mom. But the most important thing I did was reconnect with David, Sarah's biological father. He'd responded to my Facebook message within hours, shocked to hear from me after 17 years. We talked on the phone for 3 hours that first night, and I laid everything out. The lies, the drama, Michelle's betrayal. I also told him about Sarah, who she'd become, what she loved, how incredible she was. I want to meet her, he said, his voice thick with emotion. If she's willing. I know I don't deserve it. I was a coward when she was born, and I've regretted it every single day since. I didn't forgive him immediately. 17 years of single parenting can't be erased by an apology. But I could see he was genuine in his remorse. And more importantly, Sarah deserved the chance to know her father if she wanted to. So I told her about him, showed her his Facebook profile, let her see his family, his life. I'm not trying to replace you, I assured her. I just thought you should have the choice. You've had so much taken away from you lately. Choices, truth, trust. This is yours to decide. She thought about it for 2 days, then said, I want to meet him, but I want you there too. We met at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory. David was nervous. I could see it in the way he gripped his coffee cup, the way he kept clearing his throat. Sarah was nervous too, sitting stiffly beside me, her leg bouncing under the table. Hi, David said, his voice cracking. You're so beautiful. You look just like your mom. Sarah smiled a little at that. Everyone says that. They talked for an hour, stilted at first, then more naturally. He told her about his life, his regrets, his other children, or half-siblings, I realized with a jolt. He didn't make excuses for leaving, didn't try to paint himself as anything other than what he was, a scared 23-year-old who'd made the wrong choice, and had been living with that guilt ever since. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said toward the end. I don't even expect you to want a relationship with me, but I want you to know that I'm here if you ever need anything. A college recommendation letter, a place to stay if you need it, someone to talk to, whatever. I owe you 17 years of fatherhood. I can't make up for that, but I can try to be present going forward if you'll let me. Sarah was quiet on the drive home. Finally, she said, That was weird. Yeah, it was. But also, kind of good. I don't know if I want him in my life long term, but it's nice to know he exists, that he cares. That's all you need to know right now. The rest you can figure out when you're ready. Meanwhile, I was taking other steps to secure our future. I consulted with a lawyer about getting restraining orders against Michelle if she ever came back. I opened a college fund for Sarah in a bank account that only I had access to. I updated my will, naming Sarah as my sole beneficiary and explicitly excluding Michelle from any inheritance. I also reached out to Janet and Robert Morgan, the real ones if they existed. The private investigator I hired found a couple by that name in Seattle, but they'd never had children, much less lost one in a hospital mix-up. They were confused and alarmed when I contacted them, and ultimately we agreed that Michelle had likely found their names at random, perhaps from public records, and used them as props in her elaborate lie. The PI also dug into Michelle's finances and recent activities. What she found was disturbing. Michelle had racked up over $40,000 in credit card debt. She'd been evicted from 2 apartments in the past year. She'd lost 3 jobs in 18 months. She was desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. Understanding the why didn't make me forgive her, but it helped me let go of some of the anger. Michelle wasn't evil. She was broken. And while that wasn't my responsibility to fix, it was sad to witness the destruction of someone I'd once loved. Sarah's school counselor called to check in, and I was honest about what had happened. Not the specifics, but enough that they understood we'd been through a family crisis. They offered Sarah support services, which she declined, but it was good to know they were there if she needed them. Slowly, tentatively, life began to feel normal again. Sarah went back to track practice. Her times were slower than before. The stress had taken a physical toll, but she was running, and that was what mattered. I went back to my regular nursing shifts, finding comfort in the routine of caring for others. One evening, about 5 weeks after everything had fallen apart, Sarah and I were making dinner together. She was chopping vegetables while I stirred pasta sauce, and she said, out of nowhere, "I'm glad you're my mom." I stopped stirring, my eyes stinging with sudden tears. Yeah? Yeah. I mean, the whole thing with Michelle was awful, but it made me realize how much you've given up for me, how much you've always put me first. She set down the knife and turned to face me. I don't think I ever really appreciated it before, but I do now. I hugged her then, holding her tight, breathing in the scent of her hair, and feeling like maybe, finally, we were going to be okay. But I knew Michelle. I knew how she operated, and I knew this wasn't over. Not really. She was out there somewhere, probably planning, probably stewing in resentment, and one day she'd try again. But when that day came, I'd be ready, because I wasn't the same woman I'd been 6 weeks ago. I'd been forged in fire, and I'd emerged stronger. Whatever Michelle threw at me next, I could handle it. We could handle it. Together. 3 months later, I thought we were finally past it all. Sarah had been accepted early to the University of Oregon with a partial track scholarship. Our relationship was stronger than ever. Not the same as before, but deeper, more honest. We'd weathered the storm and come out intact. Then Michelle came back. It started with a Facebook post. Sarah showed it to me one evening, her face pale. Michelle had created an entire social media campaign, Justice for Switched Babies, complete with a GoFundMe, the fake photos of the Morgan family, and a long, detailed account of how I'd supposedly stolen someone else's child and refused DNA testing for 17 years. She'd tagged Portland General Hospital, local news stations, and dozens of parenting groups. Within hours, it had been shared hundreds of times. People were commenting, calling me a monster, demanding I be arrested. Someone had even posted our home address, along with threats to make me pay for my crimes. Oh my God, I breathed, scrolling through the vitriol. She's insane. What do we do? Sarah's voice was shaking. People think you kidnapped me. They think, Mom. There are people saying you should be in jail. I called my lawyer immediately. He looked at the posts and swore under his breath. This is defamation, harassment, and incitement. We can sue, and we will. But social media moves fast. We need to control the narrative now, before this spirals further. How? You tell your side of the story, publicly, with proof. Within 2 hours, we'd crafted a response. I created my own Facebook post, attaching every piece of documentation: the hospital records, the DNA test, Dr. Chen's letter, the proof that the Morgans were fake, screenshots of Michelle's theft from my bank account, and the police report I'd filed. I wrote, "My name is Rebecca Thompson, and these are the facts. My sister Michelle fabricated an elaborate lie to hurt my family and extort money from me. She created fake documents, used stock photos to invent people who don't exist, and traumatized my daughter by making her doubt her own identity. Every claim she has made is demonstrably false, and I have legal documentation to prove it. I will be pursuing criminal charges and civil damages. To those who shared her lies, shame on you for participating in harassment without verifying facts." Then I hit post and waited. The response was immediate and explosive. Some people apologized, deleting their shares of Michelle's post. Others doubled down, insisting I must be lying, that the documents were fake. But enough people saw the truth that the tide began to turn. Then Channel 6 News called. They wanted to interview me, to investigate the story. I said yes. The reporter, Amanda Chen, came to our house with a camera crew. She was professional but thorough, asking hard questions. Why didn't you respond to the hospital letter 17 years ago? Did you ever doubt that Sarah was your biological daughter? How do you feel about your sister now? I answered honestly. About my fear as a young single mother. About that moment of doubt in the hospital and why I'd pushed it away. About loving Sarah so completely that the idea of losing her had been unthinkable. And about Michelle's betrayal, her lies, her manipulation. Sarah agreed to be interviewed too, despite my initial hesitation. People need to hear from me, she insisted. They need to know what she did to our family. On camera, Sarah was poised and clear. My Aunt Michelle told me my mother wasn't really my mother. She showed me fake documents and fake people. She made me doubt everything I knew about myself. She did this because she was jealous and angry that my mom refused to give her money. She's a liar and a thief, and I will never forgive her for what she put us through. The segment aired 2 days later. The response was overwhelming. Justice for Rebecca started trending on Twitter. People shared our story, expressed outrage at Michelle's actions, donated to a legal fund someone had started without our knowledge to help us sue her. But more importantly, the police finally got involved. Detective Morrison from the Portland PD called me. We've been reviewing your case and we have enough to charge your sister with multiple crimes: fraud, identity theft, defamation, harassment, and theft. Do you want to press charges? I looked at Sarah, who nodded firmly. Yes, I want to press charges. There's more, Detective Morrison said. We did some digging. Your sister has been running similar scams in other states. She's wanted for fraud in Nevada and California. You're not her first victim, just her most recent. The news shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. Michelle wasn't just broken. She was a career criminal, a predator who targeted people who loved her. They arrested her in Sacramento 3 weeks later. I didn't feel triumph, just a hollow kind of sadness. This was my sister. We'd shared a bedroom as kids. I'd braided her hair for her first school dance. And now she was in handcuffs, facing serious prison time because of her own choices. Sarah had a different reaction. Good, she said when I told her. She deserves whatever she gets. Maybe she was right. Maybe Michelle did deserve it. But it still hurt. The trial was set for 6 months away. In the meantime, we had to deal with the aftermath of her social media campaign. Some people still believed her lies, posting hateful comments on every photo I shared, every status update. I had to make my profiles private and block dozens of accounts. Sarah's school friends mostly stood by her, but there were a few who whispered behind her back, who looked at her differently. One girl's mother even pulled her daughter from their study group, citing concerns about the Thompson family's stability. It was cruel and unfair, but Sarah handled it with more grace than I would have. Let them talk, she said with a shrug. I know the truth. We know the truth. That's what matters. But I could see it wearing on her. The stares, the whispers, the way some people cross the street to avoid us. This was supposed to be her senior year, a time of excitement and anticipation. Instead, it had been consumed by drama and trauma, not of her making. One Saturday afternoon, we were at the grocery store when a woman approached us. She looked vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place her. "You're Rebecca Thompson?" she asked. I tensed, preparing for another confrontation. Yes, I just wanted to say thank you for speaking out. My sister pulled something similar on me last year, convinced my kids I wasn't their biological mother, tried to get them to live with her instead. I didn't have the courage to go public like you did, but seeing your story gave me strength to finally cut her out of our lives. Tears welled in her eyes. You probably don't realize it, but you helped a lot of people by telling your truth. After she walked away, Sarah squeezed my hand. See? Good came from this. Maybe. Definitely. She smiled. A real smile. The first one I'd seen in weeks. You're kind of a badass, Mom. I laughed, surprising myself. Language. I'm 17. I'm allowed to say badass. And just like that, standing in the produce section of a grocery store, arguing about language, I felt like we were going to be okay. More than okay. We were going to thrive. Because Michelle had tried to destroy us, and she'd failed. We were still standing. Still together. Still a family. And nothing, not lies, not betrayal, not public humiliation, could take that away from us. The trial lasted 2 weeks. I sat in the courtroom every day, Sarah beside me, watching as prosecutors laid out Michelle's crimes in meticulous detail. The fake documents, the stolen money, not just from me, but from at least 6 other people she'd scammed over the years. the identities she'd fabricated, the lives she'd damaged. Michelle looked different, thinner, older, worn down by months in jail awaiting trial. When she took the stand, she claimed she'd done it all because she loved Sarah, because she wanted to give her the truth I'd been hiding. Her lawyer tried to paint me as the villain, a controlling mother who'd kept secrets, who'd driven Michelle to desperate measures. But the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Michelle was sentenced to 5 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 3. As they led her away in handcuffs, she looked at me one last time. No apology, no remorse, just cold, hard resentment that burned like acid. I felt nothing. The sister I'd loved was gone, if she'd ever really existed at all. In her place was a stranger who'd tried to steal everything that mattered to me. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us with questions. I'd prepared a statement. Justice has been served. My family can finally move forward. I hope my sister finds peace and rehabilitation during her incarceration. Diplomatic. Measured. The truth was uglier. I hoped I never had to see her again. Sarah graduated in June with honors. I sat in the crowd at her commencement ceremony, crying happy tears as she walked across the stage to receive her diploma. David was there too, sitting a few rows behind me with his wife and kids. We'd reached an understanding over the months. He was part of Sarah's life now, but I was still her mother, still the person she called first when she needed something. At the graduation party we threw at our house, Sarah gave a speech. "I want to thank my mom," she said, her voice strong and clear, "for everything, for working 2 jobs to give me a good life, for fighting for me when someone tried to take me away, for showing me what real strength looks like. I wouldn't be here without her." I cried again, ugly, happy, proud tears. Lisa, my friend from the hospital, handed me a tissue and whispered, "You did good, Rebecca." Yeah, I guess I did. In August, we drove down to Eugene to move Sarah into her dorm at the University of Oregon. Her room was small but bright, overlooking the campus quad. We spent the day unpacking boxes, hanging posters, making her bed with the new sheets we'd bought together. When it was time for me to leave, we stood in the parking lot, both of us crying. "I'm going to miss you so much," she said, hugging me tight. "I'm going to miss you too, but you're going to do amazing things here. I know it. You'll visit? Like, a lot? Try and stop me." I pulled back, holding her face in my hands. "I'm so proud of you, Sarah. So incredibly proud. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. To the moon and back." I drove home alone, the empty passenger seat a reminder of how much my life was changing. But it was a good change. Natural. Right. Sarah was beginning her own life, her own story, and I was finally learning how to be Rebecca again, not just Sarah's mom. The house felt empty those first few weeks. Too quiet, too still, but I filled it with new things. The book club that met in my living room twice a month. Dinners with Tom, who'd become something more than a coffee date. Long runs through the neighborhood where I finally felt at peace. I kept working as a hospice nurse, finding purpose in helping people transition with dignity and love. Every patient reminded me of what really matters. Not money or status or revenge, but the connections we build, the love we share, the grace we extend to others and ourselves. I never heard from Michelle again. No letters from prison, no attempts at contact. I didn't expect any. Some relationships are meant to end, even family ones. Especially family ones sometimes. Sarah called me every Sunday, full of stories about her classes, her roommates, her track meets. She was thriving. And that was all I'd ever wanted for her. To thrive, to be happy, to know she was loved. 2 years after the trial, I was at the grocery store again, the same one where that woman had thanked me, when I saw a young mother with a baby in her cart. She looked exhausted, overwhelmed, like she was barely holding it together. I remembered being her. 25, and terrified, doing it all alone, wondering if I was enough. I walked over. "Your baby is beautiful," I said. She smiled tiredly. "Thank you. She's a handful. They all are, but it gets easier, I promise. And you're doing better than you think you are. How do you know? Because you're here. You're trying. That's all that matters." Her eyes filled with tears. "I needed to hear that today. Thank you." I squeezed her shoulder and walked away, hoping I'd given her what I'd needed so desperately all those years ago. Reassurance that love was enough, that showing up was enough, that being imperfect was okay. Last month, Sarah came home for Thanksgiving. She brought her boyfriend, a sweet engineering major named Marcus who made her laugh. We cooked dinner together, just like old times, filling the kitchen with the smell of turkey and stuffing and pumpkin pie. After dinner, we sat on the porch with blankets wrapped around us, watching the stars come out. Sarah leaned her head on my shoulder. "You know what I'm grateful for?" she asked. "What?" "You. For never giving up on me. For fighting when I thought everything was falling apart." She paused. "And for showing me that family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who loves you even when it's hard." I kissed the top of her head. "You made it easy to fight for you." "That's not true. I was awful to you. I said horrible things. You were a scared kid who'd been lied to. I never blamed you for that." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, the kind of silence that only exists between people who truly understand each other. "I'm really lucky," Sarah said finally. "I know a lot of people don't have what we have. I'm the lucky one, baby. You gave my life meaning. You made everything worth it. Sometimes people ask me if I regret anything, if I wish I'd handled things differently with Michelle, or if I wonder what would have happened if I'd answered that hospital letter all those years ago. The truth is, no, I don't regret any of it, because every choice I made, right or wrong, out of love or fear, led me here, led me to this life with this incredible daughter who's grown into an incredible woman. Michelle tried to break us. She tried to take everything from me, but she failed. Because love, real, deep, unconditional love, can't be destroyed by lies. It can be tested, challenged, pushed to its limits. But if it's genuine, if it's true, it survives. I am Sarah's mother. I've always been Sarah's mother, not because of a DNA test or a hospital bracelet or a birth certificate, though all those things matter too, but because I chose her, every single day for 17 years. I chose her when it was hard. I chose her when I was exhausted. I chose her when it cost me everything, and she chose me back. That's what family is. That's what love is. And no one, not Michelle, not the doubters, not the people who tried to tear us apart, could ever take that away from us. Tonight, I'm sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, looking at the photo album from Sarah's graduation. She's smiling in every picture, genuinely, radiantly happy. The girl who once screamed, "You're not my real mom," is the same girl who calls me her hero, her role model, her best friend. We survived. We rebuilt. We became something stronger than we were before. The roses in the front yard are blooming again, thick and red and beautiful, just like they do every spring. I planted them with Sarah when she was 5, and they've never stopped growing. Neither have we. And that's the real truth of our story. Not the trauma or the betrayal or the pain, but the resilience, the love that endured, the bond that couldn't be broken. I am Rebecca Thompson. I am Sarah's mother, and I wouldn't change a single thing.